and Michael, of course, of last session, very interesting, and we'll of course explore those issues as we go along. There were lots to talk about there. So thank you very much for coming in. We're talking about mediators, mediation, and climate change, and the green pledge that, of course, John and Emma have initiated. Wherever that's going to be interesting. So, but I will take, of course, 30 seconds to just talk about the conference, and I'll tell you why I have to do that. Because there was a session on neurodiversity and mediation. So Martha was there, she's autistic, and she said, look, we like to know what's happening here. And of course, you know, I mean, if you've seen my earlier shows, I'm very abrupt and we start immediately because I don't like to waste people's time to get into large introductions on the thing. So I have to, but I am going to talk about basics. World Mediators Conference, Mediation Vision 2026 is what we're talking about. And over the year, all the conversations around what we've spoken about in the conference, we'll take that forward. We'll have more discussions on that. The evolution of mediators and mediation, I always link the two because I don't want the promotion of mediation without the mediators evolving and them being taken as part of it, because that they get lost in the whole picture. Everyone says, yes, mediation is being promoted in the court system and everything. But if the mediators are not benefiting from it, that promotion is not good, and all the negative things that come up. That's why both of them are linked always for me. So 18th May, please go to the YouTube channel and find it. And there is a schedule out there. You can see it in my post. It has all the details that you need in relation to the on the conference. I just put it down very basic right now. So this is what the schedule looks like. So you see all the sessions here. You get the YouTube link of all the sessions that have taken place, and some coming up also, because I mean, later today we have these 3 sessions also coming in. Then we have tomorrow, and of course lots more coming out. There was 70 plus sessions, so that's up till the 30th of June. So you have one sheet on the social media post. Please share posts. Please put it out there. Let other people know about it. You have the list of panelists, and you have the broad points that we are going to be talking about. I mean, I just put those broad points. We can always add more topics. Not a problem at all. So my job done, Emma. You have to take it forward. Of course, we've had a discussion on mediators, mediation, and climate change. That session is out there on YouTube. You can just, like I keep telling people, just search Mediator Vikram and whatever next to it, climate change or whatever, it'll come there. So we're going to take this forward. So Emma, please, you'll have to introduce yourself. And of course, yeah, Michael. No, you can't leave, Michael. You can't leave. You have to.
Thank you.
No, you
Sorry,
can't.
I just wanted to make sure I was excused, and thank you for your patience. And I hope I didn't take you too much down a garden path, but I guess it's always a story from a point, isn't it? So yeah, thanks so much to all of you.
But
Very
actually,
nice to meet you, Michael.
Yeah, Michael was actually filling in because Sarah had to leave early because she had some, with her children, she had some commitment there. And she said, look, the discussion has to go on. So she called in Michael, and it's very nice of him to, on a last minute kind of basis, to step in. So thank you, Michael.
Great to meet you both. Okay, ciao.
Bye.
So Emma, please, your introduction. And of course, first the mediators, mediation and climate change, whatever you want to tell us, and then the Green Pledge, please.
So Vikram, thank you. I was thinking about the author Margaret Wheatley last night, and she's full of wonderful quotes. And one of her quotes that I noticed last night was that very great change comes from small conversations held among people who care. And here we are having a small conversation. Who knows who'll watch it? But I think as mediators, my experience is mediators tend to be people who care, and we tend to be people who like conversation. And certainly amongst the community around the Mediators Green Pledge, and even in the work that we do, mediators tend to be people who want to make a difference. They want to affect change. They want to move the conversation forward. So, and as we were talking about just briefly before, mediation is a sustainable way of resolving disputes. When you compare it to litigation, and Vikram, you said I'm not allowed to mention arbitration, but even in comparison to arbitration, mediation, in my view, is a more sustainable way to resolve disputes. So as countries move towards net zero and think about net zero in their civil justice system, my suggestion certainly would be that mediation has to be at the heart of that. And in some countries, of course, across the world, it's being embraced more enthusiastically than in others. But coming back to the small conversations, so as you may know, the Mediators Green Pledge was the brainchild of John Sturrock QC, who's my friend and my colleague. And John started a conversation. He has long since been concerned about climate change and concerned about what he can do in the work that he does to address the challenge of climate change. And some of you may have read John's blog in the Cloke Mediation blog pre-pandemic, so February 2020, just as we were becoming aware of COVID. And in it, he talked about going to an event, a healthcare event, and he learned about the UK alliance against the UK healthcare alliance against climate change. And he thought to himself, hang on a minute, perhaps there's something in this that mediators could do. And so he wrote his blog, and you can read it on the Cloke Mediation site, and invited others to join him in trying to form some kind of alliance and get heads together to think about how, as mediators, we could address the challenge of climate change. And he was delighted to have a very enthusiastic response, and so brought together a group of mediators from across the world who were equally concerned with him about climate change and wanted to do something in the mediator space. And so WOMAC emerged from these discussions. So the World Alliance of Mediators Against Climate Change, and you can read more about it on our website. I put it into the chat, Vikram, but it's www.womac.org. And perhaps the more accessible way to refer to it is the Mediators Green Pledge, because what emerged from these discussions in the small group of people who cared was that and Vikram, again, I'm going to mention arbitrators, but arbitrators actually had already committed, or at least Lucy Greenwood, an arbitrator based in London, had written an arbitrator's green pledge, and she recognized that the carbon cost of arbitrators flying around the world and meeting in hotels and conference rooms and bringing, reams and reams of documents and papers had a huge carbon cost. And indeed, she has started to measure that cost. And so the group that John gathered began to think, well, perhaps we could do something similar for mediators. And so John wrote the Mediators Green Pledge. And Vikram, I don't know if you want to share your screen and share the Mediators Green Pledge, but folks can look at it at their leisure. But at the heart of the Mediators Green Pledge and at the heart of WOMAC is an invitation to invite mediators to consider signing a pledge in which they will commit to treading lightly on the planet in the work that they do. In good mediation tradition, it's not prescriptive, it's a suggestion, it can be adapted to fit your own practice, but you're just helpfully scrolling to exactly the bit I was thinking about, which it says on the website there, if you can scroll back up again, Vikram, just to where there's the quote from one of the signatories. It says, as one supporter writes, this pledge is a commitment that has no end, and whether it's formalized or just remains a contract to myself, it feels really good to have begun it. Thank you for giving me the nudge. So I think those of us who are involved in the Mediators Green Pledge are really just trying to give mediators who are already worried about their impact on the environment a nudge, and perhaps go a little step further than a nudge, and perhaps put some of their thoughts into actions, and I suppose create a community of like-minded people who can support one another and encourage one another. And as part of the work that I'm involved in, we can share with you our logo. And what we're encouraging our signatories to do is to add that logo, the Mediators Green Pledge logo, to their email signatories and to their websites to provoke further conversations and encourage more to join us and to sign the Mediators Green Pledge. And you will be able to see from looking at the website that already over 600 mediators from around the world, from over 50 countries, I think, around the world, perhaps more now. I haven't actually counted it up yet more recently, but folks from all over the world have been able to sign the Mediators Green Pledge and join us, which is great. And I suppose something else to highlight is that we've been trying to translate the pledge into as many world languages as we can. And to date, we have, I think, 15 translations. Vikram, I'm going to put you on the spot because you've kindly said you're going to help us with Hindi. And so it would be great to add that. But we're working on Arabic at the moment. But if folks are willing and able to translate the pledge into their language, that would be much appreciated. And they could contact me through the WOMAC website, admin@womac.org. And my colleague Anna Howard is working very hard to try and translate as many world languages as possible.
I tell you, Emma, the thing is that life has become so easy now. You go to Google Translate, you put the pledge there, any language that you want. You have to work back and forth, because what happens is that on the initial thing, it'll look a little different because some grammar aspect will come in. So you go again back to your, there's a reverse translation, go there, change those things, come back here, and I'm telling you, nothing better than that. You'll do a better job than translators might do, because I mean, it's quite easy.
Well, that's absolutely right. But what we have done is we want the pledge to be translated by mediators, because of course in different languages there's important distinctions in language, so that it conveys what mediators would understand as the right language. So what we do is we ask one mediator to translate and then another to verify, and that way we hope we have helpful translations of the pledge. But if anybody reads the pledge in their language and has any suggestions, then we're all ears.
But you have to get all our official language. You know, we have about more than 20 official languages in India. So, It's not just Hindi. All of them have to be done. So we'll ask people from all parts of the country to do that. So that's not such.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Yeah, I mean, we appreciate it is a lot of work to get the translation just right, but and so it takes time. But we're getting there one language at a time.
But before you go further, I have to clarify this A word aspect of it, because globally you speak about mediation and the word, that A word comes in. People just say arbitration, and I want that thing to be totally delinked. Look, all dispute resolution is not the court system and is not arbitration. This is also a dispute resolution system which is totally disconnected from them. It has nothing to do with it. Just because you connect it through MedAb and AbMed and you talk about the connection there, it doesn't connect the two. And people, because of the mediation being done through the court system, in people's mind, still that connection with courts and mediation has come in, which I think has been the worst thing happening. The courts are the most inefficient institutions, and people don't want to go there. Now you connect a process which is totally disconnected from it only because it serves the purpose of the courts. So now it gets connected again to the courts. So people don't know what's happening here. That whole confusion of arbitration, mediation, court system and all. So that's why you will always see, I don't even talk of that word. And it saddens me to see that mediation conferences happen and judges are called in as chief guests. I don't see mediators there. I see judges as that's another issue. That's why I'm just trying to clarify why. It's not that I have anything against arbitrators. I've done arbitrations. I'm also a lawyer. I've done that part of it, but that's a different world. It has to be there. Yes, those are dispute resolution systems, but these are other dispute resolution systems which are not connected at all with it. You can bring in a connection somewhere. Why not mediation and then arbitration or the courts? Perfectly all right. That's another step. but doesn't mean that you have to even connect it in some way. So that's my reason for doing it. I mean, I know you don't like it too much, and the fact that of course you have arbitrator friends, and I'm sure you've done arbitration. But that's another world. That's another life. That's another thing to do. Yeah.
It is, and we respect our friends in the world of arbitration, but we are mediators, and I'm happy to focus on mediation. And indeed, the Green Pledge is purely focused on mediators, so that should allow you to let your blood pressure settle again.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, when you hear me, that's exactly what people they call it ranting. By ranting, because I'm telling you, I had a meeting of a mediators collective meeting last year. Last year, yeah, last year, and this was the question asked by people, and everyone said all over the world, people connect mediation to arbitration. And that's for me the worst thing that's happened. So I have to disconnect it. So that's why I call it the A word, because it's just at all never to be used anywhere, wherever I put out anything.
It's unhelpful. I think what I've been hearing is that the mood music is more about, instead of ADR, which I think we all dislike now, we talk about NDR, negotiated dispute resolution. And therefore, we look at mediation in the framework of enhanced negotiation.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yep, a good terminology.
And, I suppose back to the point I made earlier about that being a sustainable form of dispute resolution.
But I think what I'm going to add to that NDR is I'm going to call it, non-adversarial dispute resolution. I would like to use that word, because that negotiation still makes it a little different to it. It's, the tone of it sounds like, okay, this is some deal making happening here. It's just non-adversarial. So maybe is it going to be NDR or is it going to be NADR? Let's see. New term. It's interesting that the terminology is coming. But Emma, what about climate change, that climate parliament that you were speaking? Of course, it was in the last session, but this is a fresh session totally. So all that aspect also you have to bring out.
So on our website, you'll see that we've had a number of events. And in November last year, we had an event to coincide with COP26. And we were delighted that William Ury spoke at that event, and you can watch his presentation on our website. And what William talked about, which others may have heard more about, but certainly it was news to me, was that during COP26, 80 countries around the world signed the One Sun Declaration. And William has been involved in, realizing a dream that not just he, but others have had, to harness the world's energy on the basis that the sun is always shining somewhere, the wind is always blowing somewhere in the world, and certainly if you're in Bonnie, Scotland, where I am, the rain is often falling from the sky. So how do we enhance the world's natural resources to allow us to have sustainable energy? And what William recognizes is that naturally that would fall to governments, to intergovernmental organizations, world organizations, but they take time. And we don't have time. We're running out of time fast, if we're not already past the tipping point. And so he strongly believes that in order to accelerate these conversations, then mediators need to be at the heart of these. And so he has been involved, and as I say, I hadn't heard about the One Sun Declaration, but I know Prime Minister Modi was one of the signatories. And essentially, it is a commitment to achieving a green grid. They're calling it a green grid. So, yeah, you can watch his presentation on our website, and he puts it better than I ever could. But essentially, you'll see that William was asked, given all the work that he has done, and I suppose in the context of climate change and the climate emergency, William, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Well, William Ury says, well, actually, I'm neither. What he declares himself to be is a possibilist. And by that, he means that he believes in the innate human skill to resolve conflict, to find ways forward, to have those conversations. And so, against that background, he and others achieved this one sun declaration. And what he says is that what we require in order to address these, perhaps not arguably, the most important challenges of our time, climate change, we need what he calls radical inclusive collaboration, or RIC for short. And he says, look, I know this works because he says it's such radical inclusive collaboration that brought around the end of apartheid, that brought around, the end of the Cold War, that enabled the internet to be shared across the world. And he was really inspiring, because he's saying, look, mediators, and especially mediators who have an interest in climate change, we need to be part of this conversation. And so, the Mediators Green Pledge is a very small step in a huge, huge agenda, but it is one important step. And the idea is that, by making that step, we're creating awareness, not just amongst mediators, but amongst our clients, amongst our colleagues, amongst our friends, and we're provoking those conversations. And as I said at the beginning, it's these small conversations amongst people who care that make the difference. Catherine Hayhoe, the climate scientist, is famous for saying, this doesn't have to be complicated. This just has to be about conversations. So what we hope is that by adding the Mediators Green Pledge logo to your email footer, to your website, to your terms of business, then it provokes some conversations and raises awareness. And, we're not, as I said, we're not being prescriptive, but, little things can make a big difference. I mean, I always get a bit frustrated when people talk about single-use plastic and, not printing, because really that's the tip of the iceberg. But it starts a conversation. It shows a mindset. It encourages a mindset. I know some mediators have been a bit concerned about imposing their climate change agenda onto their clients and whether that oversteps boundaries. But at another event that we held more recently to celebrate Earth Day, Professor Noam Ebner spoke quite provocatively, and I found his presentation to be quite challenging. Again, you can see it on the website, but he talked about an invisible bandwagon, and he talked about the fact that at the moment it might seem quite radical to be suggesting that climate change and sustainability should be at the heart of all we do. But his belief is that very quickly that's going to be accepted as the way we do our work. And I think there's an opportunity for mediators to be leaders in this. I think there's an opportunity for mediators to show that it works for us. I mean, mediation traditionally has been something that we all thought had to happen face to face, that reading the body language, reading the room was absolutely intrinsic to what we do. Well, we've all discovered now that it is possible to mediate online. So we can change as mediators, and we can help to be the change that we want to see in the world. So yeah, I hope that that folks will sign the Mediators Green Pledge as a start to having some of those conversations that I'd love to see happening.
Yeah. But interestingly, Emma, you in the beginning you said that we don't know who watches these events or whatever. I'm saying don't worry about how numbers. Even that one person sitting in one corner of the world gets inspired by you. That's good enough. I mean, we
I'll
don't
take
have to
that.
give. Yeah, so that's good enough. That's the step that we have to take. But interestingly, also you spoke about we don't have enough time. So Ken Cloke gave a very nice analogy to this. He said, look, there's a cup, and bacteria is multiplying every second, and it is at half full. So you think it's half full. It's on 59th second. The next second, the cup is going to be full, but you don't realize it because right now it's half full. So that aspect of it tells you that sometimes what you see and how the effect is going to happen, we don't know when that's going to happen. But on the Ken Cloke, I mean, I did that on the last session. I'll just take you through that on my website, mediatorvikram.com. There is a special section on Ken Cloke, and he has spoken about specifically the role of mediators in global problem solving in relation to, of course, climate change. So you find that here. So you can just click here and read his article. That's very interesting. And of course, the larger role of mediators there is important. So yes, that's really important. But
Yeah,
other
and
than
I
that,
think
yeah.
maybe, sorry, Vikram, to talk over you. I think maybe something else to mention is that we've also been thinking about a corporate pledge, so encouraging large corporate organizations to commit to the Mediators Green Pledge. And one of the companies that we've been speaking to is GE Renewable Energy, and a guy there who's senior counsel in GE Renewable Energy spoke at our COP26 event, Kai Uwe Karl. And Kai takes the view that he would only use mediators who have signed the Green Pledge because they need to work sustainably. They need to engage with those who have sustainability at the heart of what they do. And so in a way, they're pushing it down the supply chain. And so he's very keen to encourage corporates to commit to the Mediators Green Pledge.
The only thing, Emma, I don't know whether I should, but I really do feel I should embarrass you a little bit because of the fact that there was, let me just tell you, there was an event that was organized on this, and Emma was, I was part of that, and there was a breakout room, and Emma was going to take notes in that, and she took out something, I don't know where she got it, to some museum or something. She took out something called a pen, and I did not allow her to take notes on that. Where did you find this thing? I mean, I haven't seen that for years. This thing, what is it called? It's called a pen, is what I was told. No, Emma, this has to go. That pen has to go. That is not going to stay. I'm telling you, really, it helps a lot. If you don't have them around and if you don't pick them up, you will get into that whole mindset of everything is going to happen there. And in that session, I was telling you that actually for some people, yes, it is difficult to be looking at a screen and looking at a document on the screen and to be able to pick up the essence of it. Some people just like a book. It's like some people just don't like reading a book on screen. There will be difficulties, and I mean let's not blame people for that because that's the way they've lived their life. So let's not push it so much on them, but we have to, of course, tell them to try it out and start the process there and don't have these apprehensions. Because I did a high value commercial matter of people from all over the various parts of India and the US, totally online, no concept of any physical meeting. Yes, all the documents on screen, no issue at all. So it works very well for high value also, because some people might tell you, no, it's okay for low value, but because some people are used to those large documents, like you said, in that A process, but you can actually do it very nicely on that. So I mean, people have to know that, yes, it might be a little difficult for them. I can understand their issues, and let's not blame them for it, because it will take time for them because they're just moving on to it. And of course, now people have gone to physical meetings, so that option is there. That whole period of the pandemic was good. You don't have the option, so you had to do it. So I just feel that, I mean, I'm not going to really blame people. I'm not going to blame Emma for picking up that thing that she got from the museum.
Yeah, I mean, old habits die hard. But also, new habits are hard to embrace. We all stay in our comfort zones, and there's a parallel, isn't there, with the adoption of mediation. There's some some quote that somebody said to me about, it's a bit like riding a bike. You've got no idea until you nail it, and then you think it's the best thing you've ever done. There's a parallel with mediation. It's the best thing since sliced bread once you've tried it. But and therefore, or rather, if you're trying to bring people to mediation perhaps for the first time, then to also ask them to mediate online, may be another barrier. But as there are ways of encouraging the parties along and ensuring that by the time you get to the mediation day or days, that people are entirely comfortable. But we must also recognize that, you're talking about large commercial disputes where people tend to be pretty tech savvy and have access to technology. But in many parts of the world, they just don't have access to that technology so readily. So that, that's why we say the pledge is not prescriptive. It really has to fit you in the circumstances in which you find yourself. And if you find yourself in, a part of the world where, it's just not possible for people to access online mediation, then mediation in person may well be the way forward. The challenge then is to think about how you do that as sustainably as you possibly can.
Of course, let me also, before I forget, we are talking about mediators, mediation, and climate change. We had a session on it. So Kathy Potter gave a very nice presentation there. So people, please watch that. It's really interesting. But what comes up very interestingly on this, Emma, is the aspect of connectivity. Of course, to go online, the connectivity aspect. So what I'm thinking is, at the same time, they should be lobbying about connectivity becoming a basic fundamental right in countries. But I think that also has to go in parallel with it. Because if you don't give them connectivity and then you go tell them also to go this direction. So I think that has to happen. And in any case, it has to happen. Because obviously, if you don't give them connectivity, you're keeping them from a lot of things. So, and that might be beneficial to some certain politics in certain countries. We should not let that happen. So I think that part of it is important. And the good thing that's happening is that then I see what Elon Musk is doing on that SpaceX program of his, where through his satellites, he's giving that internet connectivity. That is hope for countries, whole areas. I mean, Africa in general, and you see connectivity is a big issue there. And if through satellite connectivity, you can get it, because cables is not going to happen. It takes too much. I mean, it's vast area for that to happen. Of course, I mean, anyway, will they be able to do it? Will they even start? That's one thing. So I think that satellite aspect is really something. The other thing that you spoke about, the fact about, I mean, the adopting mediation and whether mediation should be the online, first of all, adopting mediation and then talking about online. I tell you, interestingly, I've been saying that let's just tell people mediation only happens online. that's the way you just take it as that. The mediation means online. I tell you, in India, what happened was we got pagers. I don't know whether you got pagers in the UK. We got pagers for a very, very short time because the mobile technology came in right then, because we were late adopters to pagers. So pagers we don't have pagers in India. I mean, very few people right at the beginning took them, but because mobile phones are obviously more convenient. So pagers is not a concept people will even know about. So similarly, I'm saying physical in countries like India, where it hasn't developed on the private mediation part of it. So for them, let them adopt it only online. And let's just talk about mediation only online. That's how I'm putting it, that there's no concept of that physical thing, because that means you take them to one direction and then you say, no, now change direction. So let it go directly, cut off the whole concept of the physical meetings in mediation when you're starting off promoting mediation, because there are vast areas in various countries where mediation hasn't really happened. I'd say, like I said, court system for me is not mediation. So that part of it is out. In terms of private mediation and that being the first port of call, I think we can look at it from that perspective. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I suppose I just think as mediators, we have to be flexible and we shouldn't be prescriptive. And so I personally, I think there is a place for online mediation, absolutely. And I would encourage people to consider online wherever possible. But I think there are circumstances where it still requires to be face-to-face, perhaps not the whole process, but some of it. It's my personal view.
It's the person with the pen approach. The person with the pen is saying that. I'm telling you, this is old school. We have to get you out of that old school thought.
I suppose what I'm thinking is that it's a bit like saying that you should only email people and not write them letters.
Yeah. Someone actually did that. Said, send me a message. Why don't you send me a mail send me the snail mail. I said, man, this doesn't happen now. There is no concept of me sending you that.
No.
We've moved away from that. You have to tell people. They actually got a message like that. I mean, I was very surprised in this day and age. Someone told me, send me a mail. Post me this details.
Receive a letter.
We have to tell them. But I'm telling you, for me, look, in India, like I said, private mediation hasn't really happened. It's nowhere. So when I tell people to try out mediation, I have to tell them to try it out. Obviously, there is that resistance to the whole concept that, look, if it's high value, we've always had meetings with councils and everything. And how do we do it? No, you have to tell them this is the way it happens. And that's the only way we can take it forward. First, we reduce costs. You are telling them to try a new process. And at the same time, you're going to tell them to travel, stay in hotels, have those meetings. You have to tell them, no, it doesn't have to happen, because the whole process is different. When you talk about documents, there are only select things that you have to use. You don't look at all those pleadings and everything like that. You have to educate them. That's what I'm saying. That's an important step towards getting people into the online world. You have to, like you say, you will not be prescriptive. They don't even know what it's all about. I'm talking, I mean, look, you had a more mature market in terms of mediation. So, of course, you come in from a different concept. I'm saying mature market, but it's not that people know about mediation. There was some networking thing that I was sitting, I participated there. And of course, there were breakout room. And I asked this person that, do you know about mediation? He says, I've heard about it. I don't know what it's all about. And this is in the UK. So I'm just saying, let's not even assume people know about it. So let's just start from scratch, saying that, look, mediation happens online because it's a different process and all the benefits of it. Your comfort zone, of course, cutting costs. So let's cut costs for them. And we keep saying that mediation is cheaper, or some people say it's cheap. No, it's not. You have good counsels, you have good mediators. Forget counsels. They can be non-lawyers who are mediators. So no, it's not supposed to be cheap. And why should it be cheap? Someone is helping you settle something forever. There's no concept of appeals or anything. So I don't like to push it from that perspective, but where we can cut their costs because they're trying out a new process, I would still want to do that. And that's the way I'm trying to push it.
Yeah. And certainly I would encourage wherever possible to mediate online.
But like I said, that option is not given to them, because obviously it's old school will always think that let's look at it as an option. But if you don't even give them that option.
But if it's the difference between that conversation taking place or not taking place, then you have a dilemma, I think.
No, if you get them to understand mediation being a process they should try, that's your job done. After that, how it's going to be done, you have to take them, because it's not a process they know about. Like I said, in certain markets, I'm calling them markets. In certain markets, it might be different. I'm not even saying there it's different. I'm just saying it because I'm trying to tell you because you're sitting there, but it's not the same situation. It's not something that the people are educated on. So the way we will guide them, it's like guiding them. You're helping them. You're assisting them in every way. First, you're assisting in the process, but to get them to the process, you're actually hand-holding to get them to that process and how they should get into that process. So I'm saying it's 100% workable because I worked it out. And if you look, connectivity issues, we'll have to work around it, how that's going to work. But I'm not saying online has to be a screen situation. I'm not saying that. There can be ways you can do it. We have lots of options. WhatsApp has conference calls. We can try those aspects of it because it takes less bandwidth. The Zoom takes a lot of bandwidth, so I can understand issues can happen and where videos.
And yet you'll see on our website an article which compares the carbon cost of Zoom to a flight. I mean, it's, we're talking chalk and cheese. So if you have the choice between flying everybody into a room and sitting around a physical table together, or being in a virtual room and saving the flights, then you know what's more sustainable.
No, I'll tell you that. I mean, of course, everyone has their way of practicing mediation, so I won't get into everyone's style. Some people have this thing that let's book it for a half day or a full day and we'll settle it. I don't work that way. We have to give them that time. Like I said, it's a process. They're just trying out. So I'm not trying to fit them into one session or anything like that. So we've had this high value matters, which there's sometimes 5-minute meetings, 10-minute meetings to just catch up on something, to discuss something. So if I had to have a meeting of that 10 minutes, to have someone coming into my office to have that, and then go back and of course discuss it internally and then come back on it, I'm telling you, it becomes such a high cost thing for them to even look. Even general counsels have to, they're also answerable within organizations, that look, you're trying out a process, look at the costs to it, and where is it going, where does it go. If you don't have any precedent on it in your organization or in your whole, when in your career you've never done that, and you're now heading legal in a large Fortune 500 company, and if you haven't even tried it, so then in that situation, to justify cost for them will become difficult. So I think there are lots of things that have to be explained and told. But Emma, what about the larger aspect of climate change? Anything else that you want to talk about? When I told you the role of mediators that Ken spoke about, and of course you also spoke about that. If there's more on that you want to throw light on?
Oh gosh, where to start? I mean, I think what was interesting to me was during COP26, I know Ken Cloke and John Sturrock and others were very keen to consider how mediators could play a role. And I know that John and Ken and others were in Amsterdam at a previous COP and tried to get involved in, facilitating those conversations. But really, if the framework's not there, and in the previous session, I asked Michael about whether there was a framework there to involve mediators in the conversations. And, my own view is that if mediators aren't invited to join those conversations and aren't aren't part of the system, if you like, of negotiating something as complex as COP26, then it's very difficult for them to invite themselves. In Scotland, there was an interesting initiative run by Scottish Mediation around COP26, but that was more in relation to the tensions around public protest and Extinction Rebellion and the tensions between the police and protesters and so on. So there was definitely a role for mediators there. And interestingly to me, that seemed to be quite a novel concept, and that these big international events such as G8 and COP26 don't seem to involve mediators. But talking more about the climate change agenda itself, unless mediators are invited to be part of structuring and facilitating those conversations, it's difficult for us to invite ourselves.
I'll tell you how I'm looking at it is let them not invite us. Forget it. That's another world. Like I said, that's another world. What about us working at the grassroots level and starting those conversations, and slowly that consensus building within communities and that whole process? We can do that. Like the role of mediators only when mediators have enough time to do that and they're taken care of otherwise. However, they have to be taken care of. I'm not saying that, just that work coming in from certain maybe parties or whatever. Does the community have a role to value mediators and take them forward? So I think there's a lot of education maybe, or also about trying the process which has to happen at the grassroots level, because my focus is there now. I am working on identifying those people with the mediator mindset in, of course, children who they have it. I'm just saying that some people think we go into schools and teach them about it. No, you don't teach them. They know everything. Similarly, in communities, those people exist. So bring them out. Let's, of course, tell the communities to value them and use the process. And then when they use it for a dispute that they have, because I keep saying mine is a dispute resolution revolution. I don't talk about conflict. I talk about dispute only, because it's the quantifiable part. When you resolve it, you know you've resolved it. So when you've done that and you've been in the process, you take a lot from that process, and then you will use it within your community and value the process. So I'm saying maybe it's going to take time. Yes, maybe these are steps that we have to take, but I'm working from that end. So because
Yeah, I
people,
couldn't agree more. And, that's what Professor Noam Ebner talked about, the invisible bandwagon, these perhaps lots of people are part of your revolution, Vikram, but perhaps we're not all having that conversation together. And so conferences like yours, and perhaps even the Mediators Green Pledge and other initiatives, help to join together the revolutionists, if you like. Yeah.
That's the whole idea, is to bring people from all over. What is this? It's just what I mean. I just bring people to have conversations. I was telling Ken, he tells me, look, I really what you're doing for the conflict resolution world. I said, what do I do? I just have conversations. That's all I do. But interestingly, when I get those messages from all over the world from people, like I said, look, a lot of people think audience, numbers. No, one person we'll take it forward, we'll have that discussion with other people, and then you get the ball rolling. And without that thing, because it's not going to be in numbers, because if you look at the mediation world, the numbers in terms of viewership, if you generally ask people, it's not there, because this is not their prime occupation. It is something that a lot of people do as a part. How much time can they spend on this aspect of it? First of all, it might not be important in their larger revenue, because finally it comes down to revenue. Maybe it's not an important part. So we might have a lot of mediators as such in the world. But Andrew Miller, of course, he's in the UK, and in my last symposium, he said there are 18,000 certified mediators in UK. Only 500 have work. That's his. Okay, that's his statement. I will take his statement. He's a senior mediator in the UK. I will take what he says. So if that is the situation, how do we expect them to have a larger role and take them forward? So lot of aspects have to be brought in together. I mean, of course, it's going to be a lot of people are coming together and talking about it. That's why I say I want everyone to come in and have these conversations, and I mean, something will come out of it. Something good will come out of it.
That's it. Back to that quote from Margaret Wheatley, very great change starts from small conversations held among people who care. I mean, John started with an idea, wrote a blog, had some conversations with a small group of people who cared, and now we have over 600 signatories of the Mediators Green Pledge. That's not nothing.
Let me also tell you that I put the green pledge thing on my website 2 years back. Then when you came out with it, because I was because it actually resonated with me right then. Because I said, this is the way I'm practicing, and someone's talking about it. Let's take it forward. But in terms of reaching people, like somewhere, Peter, let me see. Peter is in. Where is he? Give me 1 second. He's in Kenya. So he says, awesome presentation. So he's someone sitting in Kenya is listening to you. There's Sonal. She's in India. She says, thank you, Emma and Straight, for an interesting session and a lovely quote of William Ury. Sir William Ury, she says, I'm a possibility for exploring possible outcomes in the field of mediation, whatever. So look, someone is listening to you. That's the important part. Even if they're just two people listening to you, for a moment, let's just assume that. Because of course, a lot of people keep watching it and recordings and everything. Even if it's two people, someone sitting in India and someone sitting in Kenya will have this conversation with other people, and that's how we take it forward. So please, Emma, please keep having these conversations. Put them out there in public, because that session that I attended was obviously not on YouTube. It did not go live on YouTube. Put everything out live on YouTube. Let everyone in the world get an opportunity to be part of it, because I'm telling you, there are people sitting there who will maybe just connect with the concept, and they'll take it forward. So that's what
Absolutely.
I do. Yeah, because I don't.
And we've seen that with so since the events at COP26, folks have joined from Brazil, and there's a real enthusiasm in Brazil for doing something similar with the Mediators Green Pledge, with a more bespoke focus on the local scene there. So yeah, that's right. It has to grow organically, and people need to take it forward in the place that they work and live. And we're excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, because look, I am looking at it as a thought that you put out there and people to do it. But what will happen slowly is that you'll institutionalize it, and that will go into a different direction altogether. I mean, you're just putting out this thought to people. Like that's what I have resonated with me. That someone's actually talking about it. Let's take it forward. Only thing is, these things tend to become institutionalized as you go along, and that will take it a different direction
Well,
altogether.
yeah, we're far from that. I mean, we're really just a group of volunteers at the moment. And so we have to keep it simple. We have to keep it to conversations, and just hope that everyone we talk to will talk to somebody else, and that is sustainable, as long as we can keep the momentum going. So, I mean, we're encouraged that the number of signatories is going up all the time, and certainly when we have our events, they are really enjoyable because like-minded people get together and support one another and offer suggestions and share ideas that they have embraced in their practice, in their mediation practices. So yeah, we're far from being institutionalized, but you know, we have to remember it's easy to be overwhelmed because there is a real bandwagon going. There's a lot of interest and there's a lot of opportunities to speak about the pledge. But you know, we have day jobs too, and so it has to be sustainable for us as volunteers. And we just keep reminding ourselves that at its heart, all we're asking people to do is to have a conversation, is to, you know, sign a pledge and then do with it what they will. But certainly keep talking about it.
Well, what I just said, that there are lots of things which will have to come together. Like I said, in Africa, connectivity will have to be something. So if Peter is watching in Kenya and he says, let me, of course, talk about connectivity and how it should be a fundamental right and take that forward. So something else will come out of that. I mean, so all those, that's why, I mean, it's not just a matter of you come sign the pledge, leave. No, there is just a thought on this end, but please let's create that ecosystem around it. What all is coming in, let's have conversations on those issues also. And then how can we, of course, 630 for people are a lot of people to take forward a movement. It's not as, I mean, that's how movements happen. So if they can go out and have those conversations, and that's what they're supposed to be good at, mediators, to have conversations. So if they go out and have those, I think that movement I mean, it'll become a more workable solution for the world, which is what we want. So all that. So am I,
Nicely
whatever
summarized.
closing. Yeah. So your summarization now, how would you want to close the session? Because finally it's your session. I keep saying this is your session. So how do you want to close it with your closing remarks or whatever you want to tell us, please?
Oh, just to say thank you. I mean, yeah, I will literally speak to anybody who's prepared to listen about the Mediators Green Pledge and other things. Yeah, I suppose the message is to look at womac.org, consider it, think about it, and if you feel comfortable, then please sign it and talk to whoever will listen to you about it. Because as you say, movement is the word. I mean, you know, we've created a movement and we hope a bandwagon, and we hope that that bandwagon will keep rolling and that we'll just encourage people perhaps just to sign the pledge in the context of stuff they're doing already, you know, and yeah, encourage people to keep in touch. And if people would like to translate the pledge into their language, then I suppose that is a specific request, that the more world languages we can translate the pledge into, the better. Yes. We're so grateful to those that have done so already, but yeah, we're just really at the start in terms of world languages. So
yeah, so please translate it and send it to, please translate it, send it to Emma, then she'll send it further to another person who speaks that language, and we'll take it forward. Only thing is that John not coming in, and his reason being that I want Emma and I will interfere. I sent him a message. I don't know if you saw that message. I said, you have to learn the art of participating without interfering. You have to practice that art. So, and he needs it. If as a mediator, I think he needs that. So that part.
Well, I think he's practicing it in letting me speak about the Mediators Green Pledge and not him, because usually he and Jonathan Lloyd-Jones and others are at the forefront of the PR campaign. So he's very kindly asked me to speak to you today about the Mediators Green Pledge.
Yeah, because it would have been nice to get his view was also as to, because I mean, when conversations happen, new things come out of it. So what his thoughts on that would have been. So it would have been nice to have that. But what
Yeah,
is
and for
not, what
those
is
who
not.
were hoping to see John Sturrock and they got Emma Anstead, I'm sorry if you're disappointed.
No, no. I mean, yeah, no. Everybody. Look, people might not. They don't even know about it. What? Who is John? I mean, they might even not even know who
What do you
John
mean? Of
is.
course,
So no,
everybody knows who John is.
no. This goes out to an audience which is a little too diverse. So they don't know about everyone. So so that part of it. So Emma is Green Pledge. That's it. That's good enough. That's good enough. But I'm just thinking that it would be good. I mean, I'm just saying it would have been nice. It didn't happen. Doesn't happen. So thank you very much, Emma. And of course, we'll have more conversations about not just the Green Pledge, but climate change and all that.
Yeah, and about golf, Vikram. We need to discuss golf.
Yes, and there you tell me that come to Scotland and imagine sitting in 44 degrees centigrade and thinking that there is a golf course there which you could be playing in beautiful weather. So that's a little
You need to
sad.
come to the home of golf, Vikram.
Exactly, it definitely is going to
And
happen.
John's a keen golfer. I'm sure he would be delighted to host you at his course.
Where is he based?
Well, his home course is Ely, Earl's Ferry, in the Kingdom of Fife.
Okay. So I'm sure they're beautiful courses. Of course, they're a little different from our courses. Of course, in places like Delhi, we have certain courses in certain parts of of India, which are, of course, might be a little similar. Because a different concept of the terrain and everything. So it's, for me, I just sometimes saying it's a different golf altogether when you play in those courses. So those.
Well, you're talking about getting rid of, stepping out of your comfort zone and
Exactly.
challenging yourself with new concepts. So
Yeah.
try Scottish golf.
Yeah, it's a different golf altogether. I mean, those links courses and all, that's a different.
Links courses. Yeah.
It's a different concept altogether. It's a different game. I'm telling you, it's a different game. It's totally different, but enjoyable because it's different. So
Yeah, challenging.
yeah, exactly. It's very
Good.
challenging.
Well,
So,
thank you, Vikram.
Thank you very much, Emma, for coming
We'll
in.
speak soon.
Absolutely. Pleasure speaking to you, and definitely see you soon.